Good morning. This is Dr. Matthew Dunn, host of The Future of Email Marketing. Should say good afternoon. And my guest this afternoon, a guy I've really been looking forward to speaking with about all this email stuff, is Brian Sisolak. Brian is VP of this, that, and the other, and is going to introduce himself at Trilogy Interactive. Take it away, Brian. Tell people
I
about
will.
you.
I'm doing well on this afternoon.
Afternoon, yeah.
And I'm going to throw in this evening in case anyone is listening to this while doing dishes after the
Yeah,
kids are in
yeah.
bed. So
Well, it's
there
so
we go.
dark out from the smoke, I barely know.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, VP of Technology Services at Trilogy Interactive.
Yeah.
We're a full service digital agency. We service kind of nonprofit advocacy and political campaigns here in the United States primarily.
Right.
I wear a lot of email geek hats, from deliverability to new tech to what is this thing Apple is doing is my latest kind of joy. Let's go with that word.
Yes, yes. Brian and I are smiling at each other because somehow we've ended up as sort of the kind of go-to people because we actually are bothering to sit down and test betas and stuff.
Yeah, and I will say it's been fun. It's, email is, we don't have a lot of pivotal moments in email, let's be honest. And this is certainly one of the most, it is really the most pivotal. I've been doing it for 15-ish years.
Yeah, I was going to say you've been in the really in the email space a lot more deeply than I have. So I was curious to hear your read on it because relatively new or long, but relatively new to email, particularly marketing. It just seemed like, whoa, this woke everybody up.
Oh, for sure. And it's it affects so many different things in terms of tactics we can use, in terms of the data we're going to have. And as those of us who have been testing it kind of dig into it more and more, we keep going, oh, and then in fact, I have this Twitter thread that I did like the first day the beta came out.
Yeah.
And then the next day I was like, oh yeah, but then there's this other thing. I had to go add to that. And then 2 days later, it's like, oh, we're going to lose this other data point. Right. So now we can't tell this. And so it's been really an evolution. And I will say it hasn't changed much since then because the beta hasn't really changed.
Yeah,
we really need to see this thing at scale and go live at this point.
Yeah, yeah, and the scale behavior for as your friends at Litmus said, they're going to cache half the world's email images.
just a small task.
That's a non-trivial thing to turn on. Well, we'll come back to that. Let's talk about more interesting stuff. How did a liberal arts college guy from poli sci end up in email?
Well, so many years back, I worked on the John Kerry campaign. I was a volunteer. I was literally doing some data entry of donation data. Mm-hmm. And the room, you can think about volunteers don't get the nicest space in a political office.
Card tables, right?
And so the room next to us was what they affectionately called the internet team back then, which everyone was like, well, what do those people do? Something with the internet. Go be next to the volunteers. And someone came over and was like, you seem to be typing fast. Do you know these things called computers and the internet? And I went on the other side of the wall and joined the internet team there. Did a couple of different things on the Kerry campaign and have been in that world ever since.
Wow. Yeah, and that was Kerry campaign was early 2000s?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And then
George Bush's reelection. Yeah, or George H.W. Bush's reelection.
Yeah, the other guy. And then you also spent some time working on the Obama campaign, right?
Yeah. So after the Kerry campaign, I kind of did something else for a little bit, and then I joined Mayfield Strategy Group, which was a couple of folks who were on the Kerry internet team. Started Mayfield Strategy Group. I went and joined them. We were working for Hillary Clinton. One of the first emails I actually sent, I did not send email for John Kerry. But the first email I would have sent would have been for Hillary Clinton's Senate re-election campaign in December of a year that's going to escape me on the top of my head. But those were definitely the first emails I sent. And then Mayfield Strategy Group ended up merging with some other firms a couple of years later. I also spent some time on the Obama campaign on their then digital team. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I've done a couple of those, and I still to this day hit the big red send button for a couple of our clients here at Trilogy.
Nice. Well, that's that puts you in a kind of the cutting edge of the political world adopting and adapting to the net. Sounds like.
Indeed, indeed. And, sometimes we do things that, the corporate space doesn't, we do it first. Sometimes they do it first. Sometimes it goes back and forth.
Yeah.
We move very quick and very aggressively in the political space. I mean, we not jokingly do work 18-hour days on those campaigns, particularly in the end. And, it's one of those, there's a deadline that you can't move. There's an election. If you want it done, you have to get it done before election day. You can't be like, oh, well, we were going to ship that product in Q1, but now we're going to ship it in
Q2. Like we were talking about. It doesn't work. Doesn't work. And corporate email marketers, from what I can tell from our customers, are either it all has to happen yesterday, or they'll kick it down the road another month or something like that. It's vexing at times. Indeed. Like, when are you going to do this again? Because we're kind of standing here waiting to help. So do you still enjoy the I mean, you guys you're Trilogy fairly heavily involved in politics and I think nonprofits as well?
Yes, we are. Very heavily. I work with some of our larger nonprofit clients. But we have a lot of, we have some clients that use us as kind of a tech stack platform. Some clients use us as a full service agency.
Okay.
Kind of varies from client to client.
Okay.
I still, in fact, just before we recorded this today, I was coding up an email, and after this, I'll be coding up another email. I actually really enjoy that. I enjoy the production of it. It also allows me to, when things like Apple come out, or Gmail annotations, or any of the kind of big changes we've had recently, it allows me to have someone to test things with, to play around with, get some data behind.
Yeah, and I'm glad you used that the phrase "play around with," because I mean you didn't go through a comp sci program, neither did I, and like that's how you stay technologically up to date, is you got to stay curious and tinker and get under the hood, because it's going to get reinvented next year anyway.
That's right. I mean, I was one of those kids. I'm not even sure kids know what this is anymore. Desktop computers, who would take a desktop computer apart, and it sat there without the case for 6 months while you swapped different audio cards out.
Yep.
And so yes, I'm a tinker. I mean, no one, we could do a whole episode on how do people get into the email marketing space. I can guarantee you this: no one went to college to learn email marketing.
That's for sure. That's for sure. It's way too sort of mutt a field in terms of skills required and likely career path and stuff like that. But that's part of the fun, isn't it?
Indeed. No, and this has been a big moment to have some fun. So yes.
Yeah. And people knock desktop computers, but they sort of started making a little bit of a comeback when the pandemic hit, and people were like, "Oh, I'm going to sit and work in the same place." And I have the beast here, my incredibly souped up, almost 12-year-old Mac Pro. And they're going to pry it from my cold dead fingers, so to speak, because I can keep cranking things up, because I can still get under the hood and tinker with the actual machine, right? Like, it never ceases to amaze me that the bubble just keeps getting bigger, and the edge that you've got to learn on keeps getting proportionately larger. It's just not there. There aren't enough hours in the day.
No, there are not, and there's the thing that still astonishes me about these changes that are coming up is how many people need to learn about them. There are a lot of techniques and tactics we use in email marketing that 90% of email coders will never use, or 70%. They're more advanced techniques. They require advanced data sources or things like that. This impacts everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. Every platform, no matter what you use to send your emails, this will impact you.
And I'll stick a big old pin in for a second. Say, if you're listening to this and you're saying, what are these guys talking about? Apple announced at their Worldwide Developer Conference this summer of 2021, a thing called email privacy. And they're going to change how they handle images in email, most prominently pixel images that marketers have been using for a couple of decades, to get indicators of things like email opens. So it's a really big deal. It's like someone just took away the speedometer or tachometer or something out of out of half of the cars that people are driving, and there's more than a bit of consternation and a surprising amount of blithe ignorance. A lot of folks who do email marketing in a significant way don't know this is coming yet. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I'm shocked. Shocked is the wrong word. I shouldn't be shocked. But I am surprised, even in the depths of like the Email Geek Slack channel where we talk about this a lot. There's still occasional question will come up and it's like, oh, nope, that's not how it works. No, this tactic is not going to work in the future. But even beyond that world, as far as I know, very few of the major email service providers have informed their clients, and they're going to be the real outreach for that. And it's a little tough because we also don't exactly know what's going to happen. No platforms have announced any kind of great changes in the way they're going to do things because it's all kind of still, we think we know, but it's a little up in the air. So it's, what do you tell your clients? We're having that internal discussion here.
Yeah. I also think, pretty strong suspicion about this because we Campaign Genius, we partner with a fair number of ESPs, and as I've reached out to talk, say, here's what we're doing with the things we do with real-time content, I'm a little surprised that the folks I'm talking with are either like, yeah, we sort of heard about that, or yeah, we wondered what you were going to do. Because I was like, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Right? Because you're going to have every one of your customers going to say, why do my open rates all of a sudden look completely different? Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to explain what you're going to do about it, explain how they can make sense of it. Like, I don't see how you get out of that front line position if they're using your platform to send stuff and paying you for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it's going to be like, we're going to make up a date here. So Apple has announced this will be released in September. So we're going to play September 20th is the day.
Sure.
That is not correct. I have no inside intelligence here. This is a made up date. It doesn't mean September 21st, our numbers are going to radically change overnight. In fact, they may change so slowly over the next 3 to 4 months that a lot of people even miss it if they're not informed. Yeah. People have to upgrade iOS. They have to opt into this mail privacy protection, which everyone will do.
Everyone will, agreed, yeah. Agreed.
But then there is the other unknown as to what scale Apple is going to run this at. And if I had to guess now, I am going to guess they will not be running it at 100% of accounts that are on iOS 15 devices. So there's also a scale and a ramp up period there. I've kind of come around in the last couple of weeks to, we probably have a little bit more time than we had been worried about. We might be able to get through October, end of November with some bad data in there, but not a ton. We may even be able to snapshot our data, right before this comes out and kind of stretch that through the end of the year. Yeah. So that's where my head is at the moment. But, talk to me. Let's record this next week. We'll see if I've changed my mind.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a tentative, I think November-ish date to do another webinar on this. You mentioned November, and for the for-profit world, particularly retailers, that's one of the reasons this seems like such a pinch to me is depending on how aggressive, as you said, the implementation and rollout and adoption is. Having these measures be different right when you're trying to make the holiday season profitable is going to create.
Yep, that's
serious
and I do think there will be some as a specific example, right? Automations where you run and there's a decision based on, well, this person opened the email or didn't open the email.
Yeah.
I think those very quickly you're going to be sending the wrong email. Agreed. Sometime, certainly by late November, right? That period where retail wants to send email, that's where they're going to start having problems.
Yeah. And to be fair to the to the ESPs and marketing clouds and so on that are going to have to grapple with this sooner or later, this has been a heck of an aggressive timeline. I mean, to go from announcement early June to potential implementation 3 months later, September, like most companies do not have the dev resources to go, oh yeah, we'll change that really fundamental measure that's been sitting there running the same way for the last 10, 12, 15 years. That's just not an easy lift.
No, it's not. And I suspect that some of them, so to get into some of the kind of gory technical details, one way an ESP can tell that someone opens on an iPhone is something called the user agent. And so that user agent, when you open a tracking pixel, will tell your ESP, oh, I'm opening on an iPhone. Yeah. And that user agent data is going to get obfuscated by Apple in as part of this process. Well, the user agent is a very critical piece of information, but I'm going to bet you is not saved by a significant number of ESPs.
I think you're right.
So they have to go way back in their technology stack. They have to go back, 4 or 5 layers deep, add the functionality to record it, move it from a database to a database to a database, then build some reporting on top of it. While at the same time, we all don't actually know the scale this thing is going to be at. So like, is that investment worth it? I totally understand and respect that they're waiting to see what happens before making what is potentially a very significant investment.
Big, and one that unavoidably touches other things. So it's not just about this isolated module. It's
That's
all
right.
the way through to reporting statistics and potentially billing reporting kind of stuff. Which is always a delicate balance too. Yeah, it's going to be at least a year of how's this actually work? How much does it actually affect this? How much do people care about it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the API we use says there's over 13,000 unique user agent strings. So I can see why they probably were not trying to bother with that for a long time, and now all of a sudden it's material.
That's right. Exactly. Painful. Yeah. No, and it probably, before the other proxies in the world existed, Gmail, Yahoo, and to lesser degree Outlook, I bet it was a much larger number than 13,000.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
And now it's become a much smaller number, which actually has some, from a kind of technical standpoint, makes it a little easier.
Maybe, it may.
But still, if you don't record the data, you can't flow it all the way to your customer. You can't alter reporting. The example that is often used is, well, could my ESP show me my open rate, excluding all of this phantom unknown Apple data? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Everyone can. But to do that, they have to record the data 4 platforms away internally and get that data over, update reporting.
Yeah. And as we talked about, I think the other day, if Apple sticks with here's the user agent string, because that's not standardized. No one makes anybody do anything in that world. I've made up user agent strings for testing just to keep myself awake. So if Apple either changes it at the last minute, decides to vary it, or something else, it makes the job a whole lot more complicated, which goes to your basic, I'd wait and see too if I were one of these platforms. Okay, I know that's going to be an impact, and to be fair to vendors, you, me, ESPs included, none of us were sitting here going, I got a plan for just in case Apple does this or Google does that. Like, we all had a full plate already, and so adapting this sucks.
For sure. And it's so hard to test. That's the thing that, when it first came out, and I will say that the beta has functionally not changed since it was released. Yeah. As far as we can tell, right? There may be a lot going on in the background, but we don't know. It's even been hard to test because we see this behavior Apple's talking about sometimes, but not others. And, we're talking here about, I'll talk for a moment about kind of the pre-fetching of these open tracking pixels, which will cause the images to load before the user actually opens the email. We don't know when this is going to happen. We don't know how regularly it's going to happen. There are different ways accounts can be hooked up to iPhones. iPhones can be on Wi-Fi. They can be on cellular. Their battery can be running out. They can be running out of storage space. And we don't have any insight into any of that, into how those different kind of fluctuations in the iOS environment will impact this functionality that they've talked about, which they hyped up. And some people kind of, I think, are leaning towards we don't see this happening a lot, so maybe it's not going to be a big deal. If someone wants to put $50 on whether Apple is going to be successful in this or not, I would not bet
You'll
against
take the bet. Yeah,
yeah,
you'll take the bet.
don't take the bet. I mean, Apple has the resources to do this. We
Yeah.
we can already tell, for example, that they're working with multiple vendors for their distributed proxy. Right? You can see based on IP addresses and who owns those IPs that they're already working with some of the biggest names out there. And they're working with multiples of them. This is a massive investment they have made. I mean, I'm going to guess they've been thinking about this for 6 years.
Yeah, yeah, and it's part of a larger. It's a small part of a much larger direction for Apple as a company. Ben Thompson, who I quote frequently because I have a high regard for his thinking and writing, calls it a strategy credit. Like Apple's going to get brownie points from the universe for this, whether it's easy, whether it's hard. They're going to get brand brownie points for this move, and that amazing sort of pivot they've pulled off to become the privacy company
Absolutely.
gets burnished all the more. And frankly, email marketing is just kind of collateral damage. I doubt it was particularly front of mind in the decision.
Absolutely. I mean, when they did app tracking, they prevented a lot of apps from doing tracking in version 14.5. This is kind of an extension of that.
Yeah.
It makes it. I do kind of like play this thought experiment with myself. Ooh, what are they gonna do next? Like, what's the next thing that they could mess with?
Yeah.
And because they have branded themselves as the privacy company, because the others have gone the other direction.
Yeah. And the others, Apple, most of their money is made. They have a substantial advertising business. People seem to forget that. But most of their money comes from people buying these and buying into the ecosystem of these and buying apps on these. And if I've said this before, if Apple sells, iCloud on steroids, the safe internet 2 years in the future, my lovely wife will be at the front of the line saying, "Sign me up," because she would pay for the perception of privacy.
And for $1.99 a month or whatever it's going to cost, you'll be like, $2 a month, that's fine. $2 a month times, a couple 100 million users. Hey, lo and behold, turns out to be real money.
It turns out to be $1 here, $1 billion there. Pretty soon you're talking real money. Yeah, it's fascinating. The other thing, and then we'll get off the Uber geek train. The other thing that makes this sticky and complicated is that testing stuff on mobile devices is a hell of a jury rig. I mean, I know there are mobile dev and app companies that do this, but boy, oh boy, like where's my network general sniffer? I'm dating myself here. Like the tool set you'd use on a real computer isn't available on that pocket computer.
I cannot crack this iPhone open and get into its memory. Nope. Definitely does not exist.
No, you can't. You can't clamp a wire on the side and watch the watch the signal, so to speak.
No. I did try a little bit. I hooked up my iPhone to Fiddler, and you can just watch some of the traffic, but within the apps themselves, you can't see what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's and some people have said, well, can you see the images when they're cached on the iPhone? And it's like, no, those things are buried so deep and encrypted. We're not going to be able to. Can you delete them? No, you can't.
No.
We have no control over this.
Yeah. I mean, we've just taken it is what it is. It is. Let's plan for the most aggressive case, and make hay if it's less aggressive than that. So we're kind of a little sort of disaster prepping or something like.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, it's because we do expect the worst, and it probably won't be that. Although I think it will get to that eventually. I think it's going to be a little slower than we've kind of feared initially.
Well, the main thing is it's any degree of uncertainty equals now you have to handle the statistics differently. So if it's 10%, 20%, something like that, it's still like, oh, my open rate wasn't what it used to be. My triggers can't behave like they used to, so we'll have to grapple with this stuff anyway. There's real-time content stuff that we're just going to shoot between the eyes because of this. Frankly, it's not stuff that I was going to miss that much anyway. And then there's other things that actually will probably improve a little bit, and we'll figure out how to do something with that in
For
the
sure.
bargain. You're like, hey, thanks for edge caching for free. I appreciate that, guys. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So that gives Trilogy a year plus. Ooh, probably good that this is an off cycle thing for the 2022 midterm. It should be kind of bedded down by then.
Oh yeah, for sure. By then we'll have adjusted every. I mean, you know, I think Q1 of next year,
Yeah, yeah.
the concept of looking at opens, and we've already adjusted our reporting for clients, right? We already, you know, yes, we are still showing some opens and some open rates and some numbers, and you know, clients, those numbers were already. It's actually been really fascinating now that I have dug more into this world of prefetching. I can now like see the Gmail app doing it pretty regularly.
Yeah.
I've now seen the Yahoo app doing it as well, and we always knew that happened. We're still not still the scale is much smaller than what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things that reminds you that yeah, we have these data points, but they're not even terribly reliable already. Um, Apple is certainly taking something that was fairly reliable and making it not at all reliable. Probably, maybe. I'm going to throw in the caveat of like, we think so here.
We think so.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, we on the political time space, we have some time to adjust. My nonprofit clients with end of the year fundraising, tax stability, that's gonna be a little rough. But I think what we can definitely ride out the data, right? We can ride out the data up until the iOS 15 release or shortly thereafter. I was just actually, pretty much the day iOS 15 comes out, we're going to be going in and snapshotting a lot of our clients' data when it comes to open, like last open date, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And go snapshot it because we don't know what's going to happen with it, and it's kind of hard to recreate that. Always can be done. Limitless time and money, anything is possible. but it's much easier on that day to go in and snap your last open date for every record you have in your database. Just save it to Excel or CSV if it exceeds that, and have it around just in case. Like 2 weeks later, we go, whoa, like 60% of our records all of a sudden have opened in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And boy, come to think of it, I gotta wonder how some of the really complex CRM systems are going to have all sorts of wires getting crossed. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't have that job.
Yeah, I don't want that job. I was talking with a gent the other day, different podcast episode, and he's a HubSpot platinum partner. I'm like, cool, respect, no thank you, man. Can't do that stuff. Well, let's get off the geek train for a second. Talk a bit about where email fits in the world of the cycles of activity for your political clients. Is it still mother's milk and the main train and stuff like that?
It's a huge deal. Still, I mean, the thing that I was just talking about someone the other day. So on that internet team on the John Kerry campaign, I'm gonna say at the end of the campaign we had about 30 people or so between staff and volunteers on the internet team. Those that's like the email team on some recent presidential campaigns.
Wow.
The teams have just gotten massive, and it's because there's so much more to do. It's such an integral part of every different aspect, from fundraising to field work, get out the vote work. Email can be a part of all of that. It's actually a struggle, I think, that a lot of, particularly the larger campaigns, have gone through, and it's partially an academic conversation as to which is the right approach, because you can't A/B test this one. Is the internet, is the digital team a thing, or should every part of a campaign have a digital portion of it, right? Does your field program, which also has a massive data component? I mean, that's the other thing that's changed exponentially along digital is the data scientists and the data programs, and the get out the vote data crunching that now happens. That's just astronomically larger than it was 2 decades ago.
That's it's a lot to coordinate and a lot to what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of throw on a channel that wasn't necessarily designed to do that. What's that platform that's so prevalent for particularly Democratic candidates email platform? Send Blues.
There's one called Send in Blue, but that's
Send
not
it.
it.
That's not it.
Are you thinking of Act Blue, perhaps?
Act Blue. That's the one.
Act Blue.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Act Blue is a fundraising platform, right? So they don't send you send emails and you direct people to Act Blue.
So the follow-ups that someone gets from them are still coming from the campaign, not from that platform?
Yeah, almost. They're like receipt emails. There's some transactional emails that come out of Act Blue, but what you consider kind of traditional marketing emails come from other platforms.
From the campaigns. Are there dominant players specifically in that niche, or are those conventional ESPs?
No, there are some very specific players in that realm. Many of them have recently been acquired by a company called Every Action and GP Van. Over the years, people have used things like Blue State Digital, Action Kit, Salsa, Action Network, Nation Builder. A couple of those are no longer in existence. Things that have been around for a long time sometimes have to end of life because they get old. And there's been a lot of actually consolidation in the industry recently around Every Action. Yeah.
Interesting. So, like any other domain, right? Did you hear the news the other day? By the way, it's a rumor at this point. MailChimp.
Yes. MailChimp.
They take $10 billion.
$10 billion. There
buyout.
could be. At moments like this, I always want to call back someone who has kind of partially removed himself from the email industry, Lauren McDonald, and say, hey, Lauren, can you go through all the mergers and acquisitions history again for us? Because, over the last 20 years, it's whether, in the political space, it's actually been much more recent. This is a phenomenon in the last 3 years, really, that I kind of at scale. But no, the email marketing industry has been the mergers and acquisitions, whether by its private equity or it's, the big players, call it out, Salesforce, going up and buying someone out.
Oracle.
Yep, Oracle, Adobe, or it's, private equity coming in and actually purchasing, the former Silverpot, now Acoustic platform out of IBM.
Right, yeah.
That's a different approach.
Yeah.
That's happened there. But Campaign Monitor Group, and we go on and on. It's been and it's a lot of, you mentioned the MailChimp number. It's big money because there's big money to be made in email. And the pandemic has just increased that kind of artificially in terms of it's compressed it. It was always going to happen, but we now compressed it because lo and behold, all of a sudden, a lot of people went online.
Yeah. We all got a 6 to 10 year boot towards the future. Right. Yeah, and unavoidable. And you've worked in it. I've worked in it a long time. It's like, okay, welcome to my world. I figured you were going to show up sooner or later, right?
Exactly. And some people will float back, but I will tell you, even here, I probably even do more online shopping than I did before the pandemic started, for sure. And it's well, I kind of got that thing set up on a subscription and it just shows up every month, so I'm just going to let that go.
Yeah. The broad box online, inside that box, the subscription shift is its own fascinating thing to watch. And I see a lot of gains there, actually. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep doing it. I wouldn't keep doing it. Drives my wife crazy, but once a month, a big honking big bag of mixed cocktail nuts shows up from our friends down in Seattle at Amazon. She's like, "Are you still ordering those?" I was like, "I set a subscription. I
just shows up. I can't stop it.
I get them. Here. I'm hungry at 5, and and maybe dinner's not ready, and you don't want me bothering you, so I'll go have a beer and a bowl of nuts." So, and I don't see it's like, that's great. Like, they show up. Okay, fine. It's a good equation.
And when people do that, if you run a subscription service, they are subscribed to your email list, and they are custom. You get so much data about them. I recently signed up for a monthly mocktail subscription, Raise the Bar, and it's been great. So plug their name out there. And they asked, did you like this one last month? I mean, after a year or 2 years worth of data, real zero party data they built on me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that they know that I'm engaging. I mean, oh, what an email program I would, love to work on.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my irks, back to Apple, I knew I'd had to go there. One of my irks about that move is that I see a lot of really responsible, respectful marketing among the email marketers that I've been spending time with. I mean, there are bad actors in any domain, but it's a remarkably effective industry at self-policing and improving its game in a way that works for those end customers. And taking away, what did Chad White call it? Taking away that conversational nod that says, yes, I'm still interested. It's like, oh, come on. You made life harder. And I don't think it was actually a huge hue and cry about pixels out there in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I still have there are three specific aspects where I think this might actually backfire on Apple and cause the reverse of what they expected to actually happen. This might result in a lot of people sending a lot more email because we
Yep.
go, you know what? I know there are a bunch of phantom openers in here, just like we've had some low-level phantom clickers and phantom openers for a decade. This isn't now; it's just at scale. But you know what? Email's relatively cheap to send. My deliverability is okay. Okay, yep. Let's throw another 50,000 records because they say they've opened in the last 6 months. So
Yeah.
you've got that problem.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
might have, we may be in a future where there's additional data sharing. One of the things we can do in the United States is a lot of data sharing between senders.
Mhm.
Obviously, if your terms of service allows. And so we may have opened up a world where there's a lot more data sharing going on, who's alive.
Yep. Yep.
I see this person click an email. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to click another marketer's email, but at least we know there's a person on the other end. I mean, I've got email addresses in databases from 17 years ago at AOL.
Yeah.
Sorry, not big on AOL. But they're usually, if they're 17 years old, that's usually where they're from. And the email addresses still receive email, but there's literally not another human being on the other end.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing's
And
ever clicked in there, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think there's this weird world where Apple may have opened up a little bit of Pandora's box here.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, because the feedback signal, weak as it was, at least there was a feedback signal.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
now, clip the statistical validity of it. Oh, geez, you just, yeah. And because it's cheap to send, yeah, they'll unsubscribe if they were going to. Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah, agreed. I think we'll end up with weird cycle times for large scale campaigns because you'll think, well, gee, it'd be if we could figure out which hero image is better and then send that to everybody else. So, yeah, it's
Or that was it. There was a third one. I was like, that's not coming to mind. And I hate the term, but I'm afraid we're going to see a rash of clickbait emails, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
because now we can't trust open.
The
So
signal that'll give us the signal is what
that's
you're
at
saying.
least, and of course, it's not going to be a great signal. But to your point earlier, it's something.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I would prefer those clicks are generated through the high end content, user engagement. But if at some point I've got an audience of 500,000 people that say they've opened in the last 6 months, but literally four of them have clicked, what am I supposed to do with those 500,000 records? Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
is there value in there? How do we dig that out? And that will be a challenge for sure.
yeah.
There are ways to do it though, and it will. I mean, I think ultimately in the end, it just means a lot more work.
There's
Um,
a yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just thinking that, like, oh man, the data
maybe
guy's
maybe it's
already
been too
overloaded.
easy. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's been too easy, and so
Yeah, it's
what
been
you
sort of cheap and available and fairly instantaneous,
yes.
which I think has been part of the attractor. The fourth one I'd stick on your stack that credit should go to Scott Cohen at Purple, but he said this early on. You were on that Zoom conversation. He said this is going to give the email guys an even better excuse to go get their hooks into the other data across the company.
Yes, right,
Right? Hey,
right, right.
you e-commerce guys. I'm not saying we need that report. I'm saying give me that freaking report. Period. Why? Because otherwise I'm not going to put anybody on your front door. Do you really want that?
Right. And I mean, it always I had an op-ed recently in Campaign and Elections, and one of the key points of that to get the house in order. This was pre-thinking about snapshotting my open data, but was getting the data house in order, because a lot of people have relied on opens, on clicks, and that's all they have. Yeah. I mean, it always astonishes me how many small, medium, major multinational don't have conversion data in the same place they send email. And that's just not an option anymore. I mean, we are losing this major data point we used to use, and we've got to have, and who knows, maybe someday we'll lose another one like clicks. I mean,
I wonder about that.
There is a technological way to, I mean, it already happens. It's happened for the better part of, 12, 13 years, I believe. Barracuda spam filters, which are not used a lot in the B2C space, used more, I see it at like K-12 email systems, law firms, hospitals, things that have very high security requirements. They're clicking every link in every email. Well, if anyone out there at scale decides to go that route, we then lose click data.
Yeah. I mean, Apple's building an infrastructure that they could turn into like the world's biggest flipping proxy server for your clicks. Mm-hmm. And then you go, oh, do you want us to leave the query string off until we're sure it's safe? And like, sounds technical, but it's impossible.
No. And they have I cannot even fathom the infrastructure they have built to support this. And they will be successful in it. We will have to adjust. There is no feedback loop to Apple where they're listening to us. There was one aspect of the Gmail image proxy when they released it years ago that they adjusted to allow real-time images.
Movable link and live clicker, I think, said about 2012, right? Hey guys, you're killing us here for no benefit. Oh.
Exactly. And in March of the following year, all of a sudden, and there was no announcement or anything like that, people all of a sudden just noticed, hey, Gmail changed that thing.
That's very, very cool.
My expectation is 0% that Apple will make that change. It will beat their purpose. And like I said, I wouldn't take the $50 bet that they're not going to be successful at it, because to go to your point earlier, this is about the brand of Apple.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, for the companies in the real-time content niche, Zambula, Campaign Genius, etc., if they would just do the protocol thing with cache headers and repeat load of images, we could keep doing stuff that we'd all worked our butts off to build.
Absolutely.
I don't expect them to do that.
No.
It actually doesn't impair their privacy thing, but why bother? Why would they bother?
Exactly, right. No, they could absolutely make the exact same change Gmail did and maintain their privacy pillars, the constructs that they're going for. Not a problem. It would probably create some more network load, but in the category of, well, they built this giant thing anyway. But now, why they don't need to?
Yeah. Why bother? They do, by the way. I don't know if I told you this. They do pass the language flag through from the user, which I was delighted to see. I'm not surprised, but I'm delighted.
Oh. Yeah, I hadn't looked at. Okay. Yep.
Change your iPhone to. I changed mine to South Africa English, because if I changed it to French, I'd never be able to reset it.
You'd never be able to find anything on a menu.
Yeah, right. Like, honey, you speak French. Fix this damn phone. No, I switched it, and then we ran tests, and like accepts language header actually came through accurately.
Oh yes. Okay.
That's a niche thing here, but if you're a marketer in EU, that actually may matter.
That's right. That's interesting. Yeah, and there is a way to beat the Apple prefetching. Don't do it. Once Apple figures it out, they're going to prevent that from happening. Or one of the other mailbox providers is going to start doing this. There's a whack-a-mole thing here, and if you start going to war with it's like people who try to get their emails out of the Gmail promotions tab. Don't try to beat Gmail. They have more resources than you can possibly fathom, and more data. More data than you can possibly fathom. They know how people, they know everything someone is doing in Gmail. None of us have that access that kind of data, and don't try to beat the system. Don't try to beat Apple.
Yeah, it's was it Pulitzer or Hearst? And like, look, I buy ink by the barrel. You really don't want to go to war with me. It's like they buy data by the by the peta and by
Yeah.
the zeta. I can't pick a fight with them.
No.
Yeah. So, how long in Seattle? You're an East Coast guy, married a West Coast lady, and now you're here on the West Coast. Brian and I got a chance to actually meet live by complete accident, which was very cool. But how long here in Seattle, and how do you like it?
So I have been here 12 years.
Oh, okay. Good long stretch.
Yep, 12 years now. Love it. And I managed to also, I've got family back east, both in DC and New York. So we also have the advantage of, going back to see them a lot.
Yeah.
I don't go back to DC in July and August. That's when my family comes out here.
Yeah, sure.
Usually the better way to do it.
Yeah.
And then, I'll head out there when the rainy season starts here.
Right.
For a couple of visits.
Right.
No, I love it. I've got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they are fully ingrained in the hiking, camping, sailing lifestyle that
The
is
stuff you do in the North Pacific Northwest.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And to be totally honest, moving forward, they're going to be teaching me pretty soon. So
That's a good thing.
yes, absolutely.
It's a good thing. Yeah, I've got I'm in the Two Boys Club. They're a good bit older, and they definitely tipped over to her. I'm like, oh, you do what? Oh, can I go along? Can you show me how to do that? This is cool. So I did a 110-mile backpack last summer with my son. So you got stuff to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. No, my older one's in a couple summer camps this year, and every week I'm like, oh, can I go do that? So I'm now researching adult summer camp.
PNW is kind of adult summer camp, but I am looking forward, I have to say, I'm looking forward to live email industry conference at some point, because I've had so many great Zoom conversations with you and other people. It's like, I just want to hang out and have a beer live with a bunch of these folks. It'll be fun.
It is. Yeah. I had some visions for what conferences were going to look like this year. Those visions haven't panned out. I think everything's kind of slowing down, but I have real hope for next year. That 2022 we'll all be able to get together. And I will say, for those who can't, that they can join us virtually. Right. There are absolutely times where I would love to go to a conference, but lo and behold, I've got the thing that I can't leave, right? And so hopefully some of this hybrid model will continue as well. So sometimes people, it's their companies aren't willing to pay, or they've got a thing that their kid's doing they can't get away from. They're taking care of a parent they can't leave.
All that life stuff.
Exactly. There's life stuff that gets in the way, but that shouldn't limit people's ability to participate in these. And so hopefully we can kind of work towards some hybrid models in the future as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I wonder if we'll see the local conference find its own feet in this new alignment. It's like, if there were I'm just making this up to make the point. If there was a email geeks in the Seattle area gathering, it's a 90-mile drive from me. I'd go, you know what? Actually, yeah, it's no airplanes, none of that mass transit stuff. I'll hop down there for that. Yeah.
Well, ironically, I was planning on one of those.
There you go, man.
Before the world kind of changed a little bit. So when the world unchanged. When the world changes back, we'll definitely have you down and all the other email geeks in the Pacific Northwest, because get together.
There's a fair few. Yeah, there's a fair few. Well, dude, wonderful. I knew it would be to sit and talk with you. And I think this is going to be a useful conversation for email marketers that are just trying to get their heads around the changes we spend a lot of time discussing. It's like, it'll be a little different, but I think we're at least both looking down that road going, it's going to affect things. No matter how big the number is, it's going to affect things. Yep.
The new year is, well, the fall of the new year are going to be different. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully in a couple different ways. All positive, though. All
positive. We'll make the best of it. Well, there you go. My guest today has been Brian Sisolak, VP at Trilogy Interactive. Where does someone find Trilogy If they're like, oh, my campaign needs help, trilogyinteractive.com?
Yep. Trilogyinteractive.com. Contact form down the bottom of the page. Send us a
Down at the,
message. Love to
down
talk.
on the page. Thanks, Brian. Terrific to talk with you.